BDP-HDP delegation has met with Abdullah Öcalan, the imprisoned Kurdish leader, yesterday on İmralı Island about the peace process and recent political developments in Turkey. Following the meeting, the BDP-HDP released a written statement on behalf of Öcalan, in which the Kurdish leader warned of the possibility of another COP and expresses opposition to all those seeking to disrupt the peace process. Öcalan said the following words: "I celebrate this new year with the wish that the hopes of our pupils for peace, democracy and freedom will become a reality." While I remember Sakine Cansız, Fidan Doğan and Leyla Şöylemez, whose names have become symbols of the freedom struggle, with respect, I want to make it clear that we will by all means hold those perpetrators of those terrible massacres to account. The most effective response that we can give to those massacres, which was carried out with the aim of striking a blow to the peace process, would be to reach a decisive peace despite all the obstacles to our attempts towards a lasting peace and a democratic solution. We will dedicate this peace and democratic solution to all the martyrs of freedom in the name of our comrades. The process that we began and which is about to achieve historical results is at a place that can be described, fuse, if war is hell, then peace is heaven. We are working to develop a suitable framework for the peace process. Despite all obstacles, our will for peace is determined as on the day we began. In order to immediately rescue our country and our region from the conditions of war, everyone must demonstrate an urgent and unshakable will. Recent developments have shown that if the peace process is not immediately strengthened and the construction of a completely democratic country does not take place, domestic and foreign forces who are enemies of democracy and want war will speed up their conspiracies. These lands have been scorched by fires of COPs for the last 2 centuries. The process which we have developed is anti-COP and has its target a democratic society. I want to remark on 2 important matters that everyone, both inside and outside, the peace process needs to know. I want to remark on 2 important matters that everyone, both inside and outside, the peace process needs to know. Those who are want to set our country ablaze once again with the fire of a COP should know that we will not throw gasoline on this fire. They will find us to be against every COP attempt, just as we always have been. However, those who are approaching the process of a democratic solution unwillingly or without intelligence also should know that a democratic peace, which is the only way to put out this fire, must be immediately established. The process can no longer bear the lack of seriousness and this absence of a legal framework. The most effective way of exposing and condemning the COP plotters is to develop a clear, bold and democratic program of negotiation. As I finish my words, I salute the memory and struggle of the valued son of Armenian people, our brother Hrant Dink. As I finish my words, I salute the memory and struggle of the valued son of the Armenian people, our brother Hrant Dink. I hope to address our Armenian comrades with a comprehensive letter and to do this in time for the anniversary of Hrant's murder. Once more, I send my greeting to the mothers of peace, to the women, to the youth, to all those in prisons, and in particular to sick prisoners. Sakine Cansız, Leyla Şöylemez and Fidan Doğan. You were assassinated last year on 9th of January 2013 in Paris, commemorated in Turkey, Kurdistan and Europe. Sakine Cansız, one of the leading figures of the PKK, was commemorated in her town, Dersim, with participation of thousands of people. A memorial was organized for Fidan Doğan, who was the spokeswoman of KNK, in her own village, Hançıplak in Elbistan. Having gathered in front of the Gem House in town of Barış, people marched to Doğan's grave.
Paris'in hesabı
Aysel Tulu, co-chair of DTK, said it would be Kurdish women bringing the responsible for the assassination to book. Leyla Şöylemez was commemorated in the cemetery where she was buried in Toros town of Mersin. Speaking in the memorial, Cumali Şöylemez told that the Turkish state would not be able to exterminate Kurdish people through massacres. The woman in Istanbul on the call of Turk wanted to rally from Galatasaray to Taksim to protest the assassination, but the police didn't allow for the march and attacked the women with water cannons, pepper gas and buttons. The three women were commemorated by rallies and activities on the initiative of BDP in many cities in Kurdistan, including Suruç town of Urfa, Kızıltepe of Mardin, Slopi Diyarbakır, Cizre of Şırnak, Siirt, Batman, Çaldıran of Van, Ara and its town of Patnos, Doğu Beyazıt, Diyadin, Kars, Gole of Ardahan, Çukurca and Şemdinli towns of Hakkari, Erzurum and Konya. The memorial activities continue to take place during the evening in Ağrı, Patnos, Van, Dersim, Yüreğir and Ceyhan in Adana. Police attacked the demonstrators in Van and forced resistance. In Izmir, Peace and Democracy forces gathered at the building of BDP and marched to French embassy. Demonstrators left a black wreath in front of the building. The three women Kurdish politicians were also commemorated in the cities in Aydın, Kocaeli and Adana. Sakine Fidan and Leyla were also commemorated in Rojava, West Kurdistan and South Kurdistan. In many cities in Europe, in Germany, France, Switzerland, Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, England and Austria, memorial activities were organized for the three women politicians. In Marseille, Kurdish people marched together with the political groups supporting their demands, Young Communists, French Community Party, human rights organizations and etc. The representatives of the NGOs and the political organizations stated in their speeches that the French police should have solved the murders.
Kurds from all over the world took streets to protest the murder of three Kurdish women politicians who were shot dead in the Kurdistan Information Office in the French capital Paris on 9th of January 2013. One of these big demonstrations took place in Paris yesterday, where thousands of people flocked to commemorate Sakine Cansız, Fidan Doğan and Leyla Şöylemez. Thousands of Kurdish demonstrators from all over Europe, representatives from BDP, DTK co-chair Aysel Tulu, Kongragel president Remzi Kartal, and leftists and feminist groups around Europe marched in Paris to call for a faster investigation into the murder of three Kurdish activists. The big rally began to march from Gare du Nord towards the Republic Place. Carrying banners reading "Turkey State the Murderer, France the Accomplice," demanded justice. Many Kurdish shops and restaurants in Paris were closed to honor the three women. Demonstrators accused the Turkish state of being behind the murders and criticized the French judiciary for falling behind with the investigation. Many leftist, progressive, feminist groups sent solidarity messages to the rally in Paris. The scheduled Geneva II conference, which is being on the agenda of Kurdish and world media, is expecting to take place on 22nd of January. Peace and Democracy Party sent a letter to UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and expressed its concerns and proposals regarding the Geneva II conference. The letter was sent with signatures of BDP co-chair Selahattin Demirtas and deputy co-chair Nazmi Gür was published at Fırat News Agency. BDP letter says the democratic autonomy being constructed in Rojava was promoted as a more realistic and sensible model for a democratic and federal Syria, while support was urged for the KSC to represent the Kurds at the Geneva II conference. The BDP called the KSC a third way as an alternative to the Ba'ath regime and radical obscurantist religious groups. Letter to Ban Ki-moon expressed the party's concerns and proposals regarding the present crisis in Syria, which is profoundly affecting the Middle East and the Geneva II conference scheduled to take place. As you know, the increasing clashes between opposition groups in Syria are leading to growing instability and polarization amongst the peoples of Syria. Under the Ba'athist regime, the Arab, Kurds, Assyrians, Druze, Alawite, Sunni and other identities have not been able to express their cultures freely, BDP said, and remarked that the Arab Spring was an opportunity for Syria to become a more democratic country. BDP underlined that, as has been widely expressed, the revolution has been stolen. In particular, the radical obscurantist groups supported by certain states have negatively influenced legitimate political will in Syria. We consider that these groups, first and foremost Al-Qaeda, bear a significant responsibility for the current dire crisis in Syria. The party asked the UN Secretary General to express his concerns in this regard and take measures to prevent radical obscurantism in both Syria and the wider Middle East. Turkey is one of these countries that the violence against women is high and intensive. According to the reports which has been published demonstrates this fact. Reports reveals that despite the preventive legal action, women still not get defended. Reports shows that 1 out of 10 women was severely battered despite preventive legal action in 2013. Women suffered from their husbands most in terms of violence. 15% of women were killed for seeking divorce. 52% of rapists were accountants to women and 36% of rapes took place at residential homes. Men killed 214 women and 10 children in 2013. 13.5% of women were killed despite complaint or restraint order. 13 women were murdered despite restraint order. 4 were slain right after the restraint order was due and 12 were killed despite their complaint to authorities. 4 women were killed by men who was either released on permit or parole. 15% of women were killed for seeking divorce. 32 women killed in 19 battered for seeking divorce. 54% of women were killed by either their husbands or ex-husbands, while 12% were killed by their lovers, 18% by their relatives. 104 women were slain by husbands and 12 by ex-husbands, 25 by lovers, 6 by ex-lovers, 10 by fathers, 9 by sons-in-law, 18 by other relatives, father-in-law, elder brother, younger brother, 3 by men whose proposals were turned down, 1 by family council, 4 by friends, 3 by harassers, 3 by strangers, 3 by thieves, 2 by neighbors, and 2 by honor crimes. 1 woman's family killed the lover of their daughter's ex-husband. The death of 4 women was not certain as its news broke, while 2 murder perpetrators were suspected to be vanished lovers. The cases of 2 trans women are still unclear. 116 of 214 murders were held with guns, while 65 with a knife. Other murders were held by strangling, beating, torture, pushing off the balcony, setting on fire.